bar to cross the border into high school. But that comes with gigantic supports. And so we will make sure that our teachers, our support staff, and we have a number of wraparound services that we're providing, will make sure those middle school scholars get the help that they need. Pre and post tests that we will develop internally, articulated to the skills that we know kids need to have. Diagnostic assessments we'll give in the first week, and those will be nationally normed diagnostics, as well as the formative assessments teachers develop in standardized tests. We're not going to test kids to death, but I think we need to, at any one time, to be able to say, not just to our staff, we're actually growing and developing. We need to say to our constituents, we're growing and developing. This is why you should believe in us. We're going to provide teachers with training and accountability for analysis and review of assessments. And so a lot of times people talk about data, but they don't train their staff to be able to use it. And it'll be a part of our teaching culture. I'm not going to go through reading the entire slide, but what I want you to understand is when we open a school, we have a framework for school, but what we don't do is die on a particular hill. And so this process of looking at data on a continuous basis allows us to make real-time in-flight corrections. And Arlington cannot succeed if we decide, once we commit to a path, we're going to stay on that path for an entire school year. We will lose kids under those circumstances. And so we're going to use the data that we're developing, not just through our grade books, but tied to a very sophisticated business analytics product called Tableau, to be able to chart the development of our kids, the performance of our teachers, and therefore drive the decisions for how we need to change the school. Our central office infrastructure will be supporting the school. So we have three major buckets in our central office. First of all, I have to tell you, I've got the most amazing board of directors of any school group. I would never compare them to an auspicious group like you, but I would dare you to find a better group of folks who are on a volunteer basis providing ongoing governance and real thoughtfulness about what's happening. Frankly, turnaround work is not the central part of our business, it's something else. But our board of directors felt very strongly that this school, 6 minutes from their flagship school, was important enough to get involved and try to save. And so we have three major buckets, I think, that will have an impact on the school. First is curriculum and instruction. Our Chief Academic Officer, Dinah Stevens, is with us today. I dare you to find a more gifted person in curriculum and instruction than Dinah. No offense to anyone, but she's amazing. And so she and her team will be continuously working on the curriculum products. We found books. We don't know how useful those books will be. We're trying to tie those books to curriculum that we've already used, that is already tested, to see whether or not that will work. And so Dinah and her team have been working fast and furiously, given the trickles of information, to put together a strong curriculum plan. Evan Hawkins is our Chief Operating Officer, and Evan will make sure that that building is humming like it's supposed to hum, whether it's food service or transportation. He has an amazing, I think, relationship with the Facilities Management Department at IPS, who are very invested in that infrastructure. And so Evan will make sure that everything is humming along, and that won't be a distraction for the principal. You see development, most of that doesn't have an impact on Arlington. We will be doing some community relations, but just we're farming some of that out to Borshoff in terms of public relations locally, and then we're doing community relations with a great partner in Forest Manor Multi-Service Center, probably the most significant social service agency on the Northeast side. So most of our development department won't have much of an impact on what's happening in Arlington. And then accountability. You know, accountability is tough. We've got a director of accountability and research. Those people have been engaged at the school, getting us the data and the information we need. We'll probably bring on some additional capacity because we're going to have to crunch more numbers than we could even imagine. We thought by now we'd have all the data. And right now I think we have about 20% of the data we need to effectively manage the school. And so we're going to bring in some more help. We'll bring on a data manager to make sure that we can crunch these numbers as quick as we can. As far as Arlington is concerned, we have that school broken down into clusters that are autonomous clusters. And so an academy leader for 7-8, an academy leader for early high school, and then an academy leader for transitions. We're also bringing in an academy leader whose sole job is to focus on kids who are over age and unaccredited to make sure that they have access to out-of-the-box kind of thinking about what it takes to acquire a high school diploma. A 19-year-old freshman is not going to sit through another 4 years of high school. And so we're going to find the strategies, and our Dean for Acceleration will make that happen. We have an assistant principal for operations who will not only coordinate buildings and grounds kind of scheduling, but that person is going to coordinate all of our co-curricular programming, right? And so when we have community partners like IUPUI who will do adult learning in our building, when we have community partners like the JAG program that will do career training in our building, community partners like the OK program will come in on Saturdays and work with our guys, that assistant principal for operations will make sure that all of those community partners have a space, that all of that time is appropriately supervised, and that work is valued. What we've gotten as a reflection from the 20+ community partners who've been working or trying to work with the school so far is we're interested, we're all in, we're invested, but nobody's talking to us. When we arrive at the school, nobody's trying to help us coordinate or do outreach to scholars. And so we've assigned a person to make sure that all of that co-curricular programming is coming through one funnel, and those people are appropriately supported as far as the school is concerned. Guidance counselors. Arlington opened for the 2011-2012 school year with one guidance counselor for what they count, 1,224 kids. And so under the circumstances, we'll make sure we'll have a guidance team, A, to focus on the various psychosocial issues that are clearly present throughout the school day, but B, to really put a fine tune on a program. We don't have records that are reliable enough right now to say we know where kids are in terms of their hunt for graduation. And so we're going to have to bring in guidance specialists who can help us say, here's where your credits are, this is what we can find, this is what you need to do to get on out here. I'll talk to you about our professional development, and that professional development, again, is not about teachers, it's about kids. So it's about teaching teachers how we need to be in an emergency room scenario. For those of us who were educated back in the dark ages, you couldn't come through a teacher ed program without having to read Rosemary and Harry Wong's The First Days of School, which is great when you're teaching in a suburban kindergarten. Not so great when you're teaching in an inner city secondary school. And so we have to give folks the kind of skills that allow them to function like 15-year veterans when they're brand new teachers. And so we're going to invest that time and that money in making sure that they're effectively trained, and continue to reinforce that training throughout the school year. So we'll have weekly embedded professional development for all of our teachers, and we're just very careful because we know an evaluation is coming down the road with Mr. Larson and his team. We're very careful to say that professional development is based on scholar needs, it's not really based on what teachers like. Sometimes teachers say, I don't think professional development is about me. It wasn't talking about how I can manage my day effectively or what new strategies help me be me and love the profession. Our professional development is all about kids are not getting the slope. What does it take to teach them slope? Our professional development is about we're writing across the curriculum and we're going to take half a day and we're going to sit and we're going to have norming sessions as far as our scholars' essays are concerned. And so when we do PD, it is focused on the real articulated needs in the building of our kids. Family and community involvement. We believe Arlington not only belongs to the kids, it belongs to their parents as well. For July 6th, 2011, I believe today we're inking a deal with one of Arlington's greatest daughters. Vivica Fox is going to join us for a launch for Arlington High School. And we're going to talk about why we are many people from different areas, but we're one Knight. The Golden Knights will rise again, and we will make sure that people are included in that process.
Vivica Fox. I should know, I guess, but
She is an actress.
okay.
She's an actress.
On
Probably
TV?
one of Indianapolis' most successful
Great.
Hollywood stars.
She was in Independence Day.
Oh,
She was.
Yeah.
I don't put the names with the. Okay.
Let's talk about where we're going. When you look at the most recently available data, at Arlington High School, only 17.3% of the 7th graders could pass both the English language arts and math sections of the I-STEP test. And when you look at 8th grade, that number actually diminishes to 12.3 of those kids being able to make that work. When you go down to the end of course assessments, our graduation qualifying examinations, you see why only 30% or just under 30% of those kids can get a real Core 40 diploma, because only 32.9% can pass the English 10 end of course assessment, and less than 17% can get past the Algebra 1 ECA. And so our overall goal, without jumping into all these numbers, is to make sure that by the time that we walk out of the building in 2016, 70% of those kids pass to, with Core 40, with 40% waivers, and we'll get to no waivers, 70% pass rate by 2016. That's my line I'm sticking to. We have other goals that we'd like to talk about. 85% of our teachers are going to demonstrate proficiency in planning, instruction, and leadership. School-wide goals about attendance, disciplinary incidents, mobility, credit accumulation, college matriculation, but all that stuff's fluff. The data we found is unreliable. I like to tell you that we're going to decrease fights by 10%. Until I got into the school, did an evaluation, and found that most of the violent incidents are not even recorded in the computer. That the student permanent record is bereft of any data relative to the students' disciplinary actions. And so for most of that stuff, we're going to have to be doing some baseline stuff to try to see where the kids are and make some improvements based on what we find in the fall. But we commit that when we come back this time next year to give you an update, we'll have set that baseline, and we'll be aggressive about moving the needle on those issues. With that, I'm going to stop talking and we'll take your questions.
Why are you projecting such a small increase in the graduation rate?
A small increase in graduation rate?
Yeah.
Well, I think the dynamic here is this.
Is that over 4 years? I'm just trying to...
Over 4 years, right? 3/4 of the kids don't qualify to go to a 4-year college. We want to flip that, right? And so this is actually, in my estimation, a fairly ambitious goal.
So in 4 years,
we're going to change these numbers in such a way that we're going to be able to get them up to the point where we don't have to waive them out of high school.
So what you're seeing there, you're saying going from 59% now to 70% in 4 years is ambitious.
Incredibly ambitious.
I think he's talking about a non-waiver.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
With no waivers.
All right, so the graduation rate, the 70% is the bottom line graduation rate. That includes waiver and non-waiver. No?
Well, this isn't really the graduation.
Yeah, that's just the graduate.
We're talking about diploma type, right? So currently, for the class of 2011, of the kids who got a diploma, 30% of those kids got a general diploma, and you can't take that to IU, Indiana State, or any other 4-year state institution. 70% of the kids got a Core 40 diploma, and that's impressive until you dig in and figure 40% of those kids didn't really qualify for that diploma.
But the overall graduation rate, diploma aside, putting aside what kind of diploma they get, the graduation rate now is 59%. Whether you end up with the waiver diploma or regular diploma, Core 40, general, whatever.
Yes, I'm sorry, David?
Using the math, 5960, 18% of the kids currently come out of Arlington could actually go on to higher education in an effective way.
Yes.
30 times 60,
Right.
18. So you're going to change that from 18 to 70
Exactly.
in 5 years, 4 years.
That's our goal.
Yeah,
That's our goal.
so we're clear.
I just
Yes,
want
ma'am.
to say I am totally impressed. And you can come up to South Bend anytime you'd like,
Thank you.
because I felt like you were covering a lot of that area. One of the key things that you brought up at the end is what I see historically the problem, not just social promotion, but criminal violence and
Sure.
how it's handled or ignored. You know, there's this attitude of, we'll take care of our house,
Sure.
and that's where it stays.
Sure. Well, not even that. I think, authority was absolutely abdicated at the school. I mean, kids hurl profanities at each other, they hurl profanities at adults, and we've watched administrators stand by and absolutely not act. In my estimation, that's an act of violence. You know, if my 6-year-old was standing there, I'd be more than offended. I'd be violently upset. And so there are people's little kids exposed in that environment, right? And so under the circumstances, I think folks have decided and have said to us in interviews, but that's just the way these kids are.
So how would you handle issues related to criminal violence? What would be the goal?
You know, I don't know that you can have a different response than anybody else has, right? So if a kid is criminally violent, I think most schools would say, especially when you have sworn police officers on duty, that kid has to be arrested because he was criminally violent, right? One of the things that Evan found out as he was trying to put together a safety and security plan was folks were saying, look, do you want security guards or do you want cops? Because cops, if they see a law being broken, they're going to act. Security guards, you got more leeway.
So what do they have now?
They have sworn police officers. IPS has one of the largest police departments in the entire country.
But they're not acting.
Pardon me?
But they're not acting?
They're not effective.
Okay.
And the feedback that we got from the police officers was there is no integrated approach to policing the building.
Yeah.
That they are one reality, the staff is another reality. They'd like to do policing, they've been asked to manage classrooms,
Right.
and so there's just no articulated approach to how the 380,000 square feet is managed.
From a school person's point of view, if they're just like you're saying, if there's a criminal act, you know what, we have a responsibility
Sure you do.
to arrest.
Sure.
And if you don't, then you're in trouble, and we can go to situations such as happen that are real evident right now in the deal in Muncie and the deal in LaPorte. You have to arrest. You don't have a choice.
That's right.
But I like what you're saying, and I had the experience of being in a high school with an SRO in an inner city high school. And you're right. We had a coordinated effort between us where he helped me, but he also took care of crime.
Exactly.
And that's the way it's got to happen.
Well, what's interesting to me is, kids know that a heavier push is coming toward high expectations for culture and a more structured environment. And we still have, plus 500, 600 kids who wouldn't even sign the waiver and leave. Now, we're going to go door to door the entire summer. We've already hired a street team to go knock doors on the northeast side in advance of this rally. They'll keep knocking until we get to comp day, probably. But I think it's telling the kids want something else. And so no kid wants to go to a situation where I can't go to the bathroom because I'm afraid of what might happen to me in the bathroom. Who's waiting for me inside? Ms. Pickett?
First of all, again, it's a really well thought out plan, well written, and very much appreciate all the effort that went into it. It is very compelling, and as with everyone else, I wish you great success. My only question is just whether you've given any consideration. I mean, I didn't even think I realized how big Arlington is. I've been there, and I know it's big, but does it make sense to consider closing off part of it, at least for a while, or is that really not practical?
Oh my God, the architecture is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. And so again, they have.
How many times has it been added on?
I don't exactly know the history of that.
So there's no
I think they built it big,
There's
actually.
no one obvious place where you can.
Because of the placement of science labs, music rooms, and art rooms, you can't really do that. We're doing some very light reconstruction because we believe that code enforcement gives us permission to close off the courtyards that kids use to skip classes. They don't stay in the courtyard, they just run across to the other side of the building. So we'll do some of that. We'll try to close off a small portion of the basement around the bookstore and the business office. We think we can limit some traffic that way, but otherwise we just have to stand in the way. When we walk through the building now, you'll see kids do what we call the Arlington Peep, which is they look out of a stairwell to see if there are any adults, and if they see the coast is clear, they're on the move. And so we have to tell the kids reliably, we care so much about you that you're not going to just float through this space. The secondary message to that is not only are we not going to let you flow through the space, we're going to let other folks flow through the space who might be a threat to you.
How are you? I don't. If I missed, if you said so, I apologize. I missed it. How are you doing in terms of recruitment of staff? Are you on track?
Doing very well. We have a day-long interview day going for teachers today. We did the same thing yesterday. We're probably 60 or 70% there with teachers. The admin team is locked up. We've got a great middle school director coming from North Star Academy in New Jersey, who one of America's greatest middle schools. He's been there as a great teacher and as a principal fellow, enrolled at Columbia University to get an advanced degree. We've got a great young lady to do 9 and 10 who's moving here from Washington, D.C., who's worked at one of D.C. Public Schools' most premier schools. And so we've put together, we think, an incredible team. And we've got some folks who really want to stay, guidance counselors and junior administrators who really want to be part of turning the school around.
One last question. I was very struck at that community hearing with the interest and what I thought at the time was a commitment by a number of groups in the community to help. I'm particularly struck, I remember the NAACP seemed to be very, very committed. And are they sticking with that? And are there ways that, you mentioned Forest Manor, and that's a great ally, but are there other allies that you have, and how do you envision using their resources?
That's a really wonderful question. I think there have been community partners at the table at Arlington for a while. As a matter of fact, I'd argue this time last year, they were trying to galvanize to come up with a plan to do what they could to save the school. But the feedback they gave us was nobody's helped us. You know, when we come up to the school, we always have different people to talk to. We never have a reliable place to meet. We have no way to access kids that we want to help and support. And so what we've done is establish, based on that input from them, an assistant principal for operations who is their point of contact, who knows his responsibility is to make sure that these outside partners have a way in to get what they need.
Anything else from Marcus? Marcus, thank you very much.
Appreciate the time. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we'll move to an update on lead partners. Jim, would you like to? Briefly? I just heard someone whisper in my ear.
So, while this is the culmination of, I think, really important and exciting work, we also are taking a differentiated approach to school turnaround, as you all know. We have 3 lead partners doing work at 2 schools. At our next meeting, we'll go very much in depth with them, presenting on where they've been this year. We've looked at some preliminary ISEP data and are encouraged, although it's preliminary, by some, what we would argue, some substantive growth at these schools. But we'll say more about that in the future. I would just simply say that one thing that's particularly important is that we spent the last couple of weeks really looking at the year in total and thinking about what are the lessons learned and how do we tighten up what has worked well, how do we augment where areas are of need, et cetera, et cetera. One concrete example of that is, as you know, the state is embarking on a huge enterprise as it pertains to teacher evaluation through RISE. And the New Teacher Project, one of our lead partners is working at both of our lead partner schools, has been a part of the development of that instrument from really its inception here at the department. And they have thus been working closely with Indianapolis Public Schools and those 2 schools in particular to help ensure that RISE is implemented with fidelity as the district moves towards that. So we'll say much more about that at our next meeting, but wanted to just kind of let you know where we are, big picture, and I appreciate very much Carrie has joined us for one of our professional learning community experiences at George Washington Community High School, and we'll certainly continue. We'll send out more dates as those opportunities continue. I want to move to the public hearing on possible interventions for John Marshall Community High School, if it's okay, Dr. Bennett, just to give you an update there. June 11th, let me back up one level. The state of Indiana currently only has 1 school that for 5 consecutive years has been in academic probation, or what we'll now call F status, and that school is John Marshall Community High School here in Indianapolis, Indiana. And the community hearing to discuss and hear from the community on possible interventions will be, again, on June 11th from 6 to 8 p.m. At the school. And that will be an opportunity for the community to hear for all folks to hear from the superintendent of Indianapolis Public Schools, and also to submit their comment on what they see is the most appropriate intervention for that school should it arrive at year 6 of academic probation.
If I may, let me just very quickly go through the process that will follow. It'll be the same process, and of course, any of you are welcome to attend. Many of you Joe was at some of the South Bend ones, and I know some of you, Mike came to Fort Wayne, some of you came to Indianapolis. So if you are interested, let us know so we can make sure that we have appropriate seating for you at the table. It'll be a similar format to where, again, Dr. White will have the opportunity to present a plan for consideration, because if you go back through Public Law 221, under the interventions is to consider what the district says. So the district has the opportunity to present a plan to us. And so Dr. White will do that. Then we will have 3-minute public comments, again timed, like we did last year. We will stay very much on our format. These will be transcribed as it was last year. So this, again, will be limited to 2 hours. We'll use the exact same format we used last year for the board's public hearing at Marshall. Thank you, Jim. Consent agenda.
Move adoption.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? I'd be afraid to say anything. For action, approval of the final rule on APC expenditures.
This is the rule about school spending. They are state special ed money generated by non-public school students. The public hearing was held on May the 4th. No one attended, and there were no public comments on the proposed rule. So we need you to take action to approve the rule in final form.
Do we have a motion? We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion other than to say, is this the first time in a public hearing we've not had any comments?
One of the few, probably.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Yeah. Go ahead.
Can you brief me on that public hearing intent, the purpose? Just real short, what was it?
The public hearing was for folks to comment on the proposed rule.
That was?
What the rule is. The rule is about public schools are required to provide special education services to non-public school students. They generate state special education dollars for those students, and this is to ensure that they spend those dollars on services to non-public kids.
Okay. That's what I thought it was.
Yes.
But
yes.
So now, no other discussion. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approval of rulemaking to amend the reading rule.
Based on statutory changes that occurred in the 2012 session, we need to now modify the rule to comport with the statute, and they're asking.
Which ticks me off.
Okay.
I'm just saying, back to what Tony said all along. We create charter schools, and all of a sudden we're going to give them a different set of rules. Why in the heck, if the rule's good for the public schools, why isn't the rule good for charter schools?
I agree. Strongly.
And so, but it was changed in legislation,
Yes.
and so I can vote no. But what good does it do?
We eventually have to modify the rule to comport with the
Yes.
statute.
Well, I'm still going to vote no.
Okay.
You coming with me?
I am.
All right. Anybody else coming with me?
It would probably not be a good thing for us to kind of do that now.
Okay, well, let's do it.
Is there a motion to begin the rulemaking process? Yeah, we have to begin the process.
Oh, that's what this is, right.
Yeah.
Okay, then we can speak up.
Yes, then you can
Yes.
speak up. We have a
Second.
motion, we have a
Second.
second. Any further discussion other than that we've already heard?
I'm still thinking it's so ridiculous it even shouldn't go to rulemaking.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Noted. Aye.
Maybe we can draw this out long enough to hope the legislature might
Change its mind. I agree with Mike on this one. This is bizarre.
I got a nay in there too, if you want to. I don't want to go through a meeting without voting nay on something.
Yeah, that would be unprecedented, wouldn't it?
That's right.
We're getting a little punchy here.
It is 2:30.
Board operations, future meetings. I think given, and I hate to bring this back up, given the fact that that the board did not choose to consider amending the interventions, there is no real need for any meeting in June.
No, July. This is
Or
July.
Well, no, but we were going to have a meeting in June, and where I was going was I have heard many conflicts from July, and the only option was to move it back to before the beginning of June to meet everyone's schedule, or to the end of June. So my question is there agreement that we forego the July meeting?
I'll make a motion we forego the July meeting.
Do you need it for any sense?
We don't see it, no.
What about this? Well, this is something different. This doesn't need us for a meeting,
No.
right?
That'll be down the road.
If you feel like you want a meeting later, call us.
Right.
So I'll second the motion.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
So our next meeting will be in August. Two other things to mention. One is a reminder of the June 28th advanced placement reception. You all got an email about it. If you're interested in going, you need your RSVP in by tomorrow to Amy Marsh. And June 21st is the public hearing on REPA 2. It will be live streamed, so you can watch it if you want.
That's an input.
That is an input hearing.
Input
And Neil,
hearing.
what that letter you have from IPSS is asking you to delay. So there's no action needed on that, because we will go ahead with the public hearing. The question will be, I think, after we have that, is the board comfortable acting after the public hearing? Okay?
I don't have it written down. I'll double check and get back to you.
Okay, I'll plan on, I'm open that afternoon, so I'll try to go.
Okay.
It is a neat reception. I know you were there last year, Neil. It was. Any further business? Motion to adjourn. Oh, wait a minute. We had somebody signed up for public comment and they didn't show up.
Teresa Meredith signed up for public comment. She had to leave. She's emailed me her testimony, and I will email it to you as soon as the meeting's over.
Okay, thank you very much.
what we agreed.
We have a motion, we have a second.
Who seconded? I'm sorry.
Second.
Sorry.
All in favor? Aye. Meeting is adjourned.
Eu mesmo mentindo devo argumentar.